Hello and welcome to today's episode of Reset to Reinvent. How are you doing today? How are you feeling? You feeling good? And I am feeling great. In our premiere episode, I shared a little about me and why I started this podcast and how it all came together, and I had a little fun. I had fun doing that. So today I am going to shed a little bit more light on who I am, where I'm from, what I do, why I do what I do. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my life's tough challenges. And this was a long time ago. Because when you think about life, tough challenges, that's what this show is all about. Reset to reinvent. So my education and my business, which I've been doing since 1991, pedigree is pretty decent. But let me tell you, my school of hard knocks and personal life's experiences ever since I was born, even before I was born, are even a little bit more compelling. Okay? Enough so that they give me the energy and the drive and the passion and the desire to create this podcast in the first place. Because Reset to Reinvent is designed to empower women to rebuild and thrive after life's toughest challenges by providing inspiration, guidance, and actionable strategies for resilience. That's what we're all about. I believe that God has a plan for each of us. What do you think? What do you think about that? Do you believe that? I really believe that. Now, I haven't always been of that firm and strong and passionate about, I believe that, God has a plan for all of us. Now, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Jeremiah 29:11. Okay? Jeremiah 29:11. Very, very popular, for lack of a better word, scripture. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Man, doesn't that make you just feel like, wow, I can handle anything, because that's what God says. Jeremiah 29:11. That's one of those scriptures that I have written on a index card, and I read it from time to time. I think it was years ago that one of my pastors suggested ways to learn and memorize scripture. And that was a suggestion. He said, whatever your favorite ones are, put them on an index card and put them somewhere where you can pick them up and read it and memorize it. And I started doing that. And Jeremiah 29:11 is one of those. It's probably one of your favorites too. But check this out. God also knew who we were before we were born. Oh my gosh. Think about it. And this comes from Psalm 139:13. And, as me and my producer were talking earlier, we were just talking about ways to, how do I get people to learn a little bit about Helen Blocker Adams? How does it tie in with reset to reinvent. I can't remember exactly when that name came to me, but I know God gave it to me. There's no doubt about that. And so when I think about, one of the things that, I learned in some of the podcasts, training and courses that I've participated in, they said, be authentic, find something that you can talk about that, you don't have to fake it. And so one of the things that we did months ago was kind of like a timeline of some of the things of my life. And oh boy. So Psalm 139:13. Many of you are probably familiar with this scripture too. This is really, really good. For you created my inmost being. He knit me together in my mother's womb. So before you were born, God already knew what was going to happen. And I know we hear pastors preach it, and it's like, and then of course some of you are probably saying, well, man, how come he didn't let me know I was going to go through this or go through that? I know, I feel you. But that's what Reset to Reinvent is all about. We're going to help you unravel some of those challenges so that you can reset and reinvent yourself. So when I think about this scripture, Psalms 139:13, for you created my inmost being. He knit me together in my mother's womb. It resonated with me in a very deep way. Because when I think about my birth, now, obviously, I don't remember. I just know what my mom told me, okay? She told me about my birth. She told me, my beautiful, wonderful mom told me how she had to struggle with me. I'm the firstborn, okay? First of four children. And she said that she struggled with me. Yeah, like 36 hours or so in labor. Now, I've never experienced that before, birthing a child. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to have children. So I have no way of knowing what that felt like. But 36 hours is a long time. Okay. So she struggled. I struggled. Come to find out, I was, the umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck. I was struggling. This was before I came out of my mom's womb. And so obviously I came out fine, but when I did arrive, I was 5 pounds, about the size of a 5-pound bag of sugar. And I was purple in color. I was all wrinkled like a prune, like a raisin. And so I guess the doctor had to reset me that day, didn't he? On May 1st, 1959. As a baby, for you created my inmost being. He knit me together in my mother's womb. Wow. But look at God. And I got to add this. Okay. So my wonderful dad, I was a military brat. Okay. My dad was in the Air Force. I was born in the hospital at Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia. Okay. Hampton, Virginia. And, he's told my mom, he said, what happened to my baby? He said that I didn't look very good. And actually, he said I was an ugly baby. And my mom was furious. No, she's not. She's a beautiful baby. And, I turned out okay. But when I think about being born and struggling as an infant, and then I think about where I am today and that reset to reinvent, you guys, I want you all to see a pattern. The doctor had to reset me that day. Okay. Dad was in the military, Air Force, military brat. We lived overseas a good portion of my life. Actually, those first 16 years, my formative years was spent living overseas. And I'll share, over the coming weeks a little bit more as we go along. But I wanted to share a few other things what happened to me when I was young. I mean, I wasn't even a teenager yet. When we think about this podcast, reset to reinvent. So when I was a baby, I think I was about 1 year old. And I have a picture to prove it. I don't have it with me, but I got a picture to prove it. My mom has a picture. I had to have both of my legs reset. My legs were kind of going inward. And the doctor said, you know what? If the only way that we can deal with this so that she doesn't have problems later on as an adult, we've got to reset her legs. And so they broke my legs, made them straight, and put casts on my 1 year old little body. Can you imagine that? Now, of course, I didn't know what was going on, but think about it. Reset. They had to reset my legs as a baby. Wow. They had to reset my legs. Ain't that something? So, who knows the problems I could have had as an adult if they didn't break my legs so that they can reset them. Okay. Reset to reinvent. Some of the challenges that you may have experienced at some point in your life, sometimes you got to reset. You got to step back, sit back, start over, have a conversation with God, and just be still. Some of us, we just go, busy, 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 and we're still struggling, and we're wondering why. It's because we gotta just sit back and be still and get closer to God. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in terms of some actionable strategies I want you to try. Because when I think about my life, okay, so sometimes we've got to reset, start over, sit back, talk with God. Because some of us think we've got to do everything ourselves, But there are people who can guide you, empower you, inspire you, motivate you. We're going to help you. You're at Reset to Reinvent. Oh man, we're going to have guests lined up to just share some stories and share some things that they've done to get to where they are today. Wow. Oh, let me share another experience with you, okay? Now, this was when we were living, remember I told you, my dad was in the Air Force. So we lived in, and by the way, I was born in Langley Air Force Base there in Hampton, Virginia. But when I was about 10 years old, we were living in Okinawa, Japan. Okay. Matter of fact, we lived there for 5 years. And I was a Girl Scout. Okay. I was a Girl Scout. And we had an excursion one Saturday. It was a beautiful day, and it was probably close to 100 Girl Scouts that took this trip on a boat, because we went to another island, because Okinawa, Japan is like an island, okay? And then we had to go to another island. It was a smaller island, and it was for us to do some Girl Scout stuff, so that we can earn badges and do some things too in the wilderness and in the wild, if you will. Well, it was a beautiful day when we left, and we left early that morning. We got on that boat, went across to that island. We were all excited. We had a great time. And then a little bit later in the day, started getting dark. And it was still, it wasn't late to have started to get dark. We started getting, some watching the body language of the adults, watching them talking to each other and whispering, and knowing that there was some weather conditions going on. And come to find out, there was a storm on the way, and the storm was going to be too much for us to get back on that boat and head back home. So guess what we had to do? We had to stay on that island. We were stranded on this island. I was 10 years old, and we were stranded on an island in the middle of nowhere. Now, this was an island. There wasn't that many people there on that island, okay? So the winds and the rain, they got so fierce that we had to stay overnight. Now, to me, it was an experience. It was a journey. A lot of the girls, oh my gosh, they were crying and they were upset and they were scared. And I wasn't afraid. So, the military soldiers, they came over and they brought us sleeping bags and brought us water and military rations, which is basically food in a can. And I remember we were staying in an abandoned school gym. So they had us all lined up in the sleeping bags on the floor of this gym. And I honestly can't remember if I personally got a chance to speak with my parents, but I do remember them saying that, hey, look, we have alerted the families to let them know that, you're okay. And some of the girls, they were still crying. I wasn't crying. I was like, man, this is kind of fun. Okay. So it was just, I was fascinated with the whole experience, and we were safe. We weren't in harm's way, and we did sleep on the floor. And I remember the first can. This is so funny. I remember the very first can that I opened. As I opened it up, had a worm in it. Now that wasn't fun. So I threw it away, and I was like, do I want to open up another one? So I did, and I didn't have any other problems. But I had a worm in the very first one that I opened up. Okay. So the next morning, the weather, and by the way, the weather that night was horrendous. You can hear the wind blowing and the rain coming down. It was bad. It was bad. But the next morning, everything was clear. And the way we got transported back was via helicopters. So you had these helicopters coming and landing, and probably, 6 to 8 girls were able to get on at one time, and they transported us home. So guess who got the chance to be the first Girl Scout on the helicopter? It was moi. And when we got back to Okinawa, of course, the news, the press was there, and they took a picture, and then I made front page news. This was 10 years old, talking about reset to reinvent, talking about life's challenges, talking about having an experience that, I'll never, ever, ever forget. But I wasn't afraid. And, when you think about people that have to make changes in their careers, or like right now, there's just so many people that's in a flux when it comes to their careers, their jobs. Once a job used to be with the federal and state government, used to be like, man, just secure. And right now, the security is dimming. So there are a lot of people that's a little fearful, okay? And rightly so. I'm not going to minimize that at all. But, that's where we've got to find a source, find some sources that's bigger than that situation. Because I think we can all agree. I hope we can all agree that God is the one who's in control. Okay? He's the one that's in control. And so when I think about this show and where we are and what we're doing, what we want to do, before I move any further, I've got something that I want you to do. Okay. One of the things that we talked about is that we want to provide actionable strategies. We want to give you some ways to reset, to reinvent. And one of the things that I know, even though, I think many of you have probably thought, okay, at what point did I really start to believe that, God was in control and that God's got this, and started really believing what we read in the Word and what we hear when we go to church every Sunday. And so I can't say, when I was 10 years old, when I was 10 and in that situation, stranded on an island, I can't tell you that, oh yeah, well, I had my faith in God so much that, I knew that he was going to take care of me. Now, I wasn't fearful, but I can't say that it was because of my wonderful relationship with the Lord at 10 years old, really. But I do know that when you think about your life and you make almost like what we did with me, I made kind of like a timeline of some things that happened. That timeline, you're going to find a pattern of how you operate, how you think, how you respond to things. And at the time, you're not thinking that's a big deal, but over a period of time, it's like, yeah, it is a big deal. So, but I just believe that if you, as a strategy in dealing with stuff, life, heartache, feeling a sense of hopelessness, developing that relationship and getting closer to God, you can't go wrong. Now, I'm not going to say it's not going to hurt along the way. Yeah. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. But I can assure you that you get closer to God. Allow yourself to get closer to him. The less time that you're going to spend thinking about your problems, your situations, okay? He has the answers. He has all of the answers, but you have to be present. You have to be still. And that's something that I want to charge you to do. You probably already have a deep relationship with the Lord. Let's dive deeper. Let's dig deeper. You can do that. And then apply that with whatever you're dealing with. Yeah. It can work. It can work. May not happen overnight, but it can work. So as we look at reset to reinvent, think about this. This is our second episode. Empowers women to rebuild and thrive. And remember last week, I used the term, thrive in 2025. You're hearing that all over the place. Thrive after life's toughest challenges by providing inspiration, guidance, and actionable strategies for resilience. That's what we want to do. And something that I want to do starting on this episode is share, I can't remember how long I've been doing this, but definitely over 10 years. What I would do is, when God would give me a message, give me something to encourage somebody, the inspiration may come from a scripture that I read that morning, or a situation where someone was not feeling good and I felt it. And I'm like, you know what? I need to just put something out there. They may or may not have seen what I wrote or posted on Facebook, but the message would resonate with someone. And it happened every time. And they were all God inspired, wasn't me. It just gave it to me. I was like, man, I got to write it down. So about 10 plus years ago, I started coming up with Helen's Life Nuggets. Helen's Life Nuggets. And I put them out there, and these are all authentically mine. So my wonderful producer, she said, you know what, Helen? How about let's include a Helen's Life Nugget on each one of your episodes? I'm like, what a great idea. Now, I've got bunches of them, okay? Bunches of them. And, oh, by the way, if you go and check out my website, reset2reinvent.com, reset2reinvent.com, check it out. Not only will you see some of our life nuggets, but you can also check out our store, Reinvent store. And there's several books there, ebooks that I encourage you to buy. They're designed to inspire and motivate you. One's dealing with mental toughness. And I think right now, mental toughness is something that we definitely need more of to get through what's happening in the world today. Okay. Reset2reinvent.com. That's our website. Yeah. So it's time for Helen's Life Nugget. So here it is. The challenge you may be facing today is much smaller than what God has already planned and positioned you for. Keep pressing. Wow. The challenge you may be facing today is much smaller than what God has already planned and positioned you for. Keep pressing. When it seems hard, keep pressing. Because guess what? All we have is right here, this moment, right now. This moment. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yesterday's already gone. Keep pressing. Next week, I am really, really, really excited to share. I'm going to have my first guest. You got to join me here to see who it's going to be. But I can tell you this woman has been through some stuff in her lifetime. And not just her family. And she has had to reset herself and reinvent herself over and over and over again. She has got a story of resilience and tenacity that will just make you like, wow. Okay. So that's going to be next week. So I'm really excited about having a guest and on next week's episode. And from time to time, we'll do more solos so that we can get to know each other a little bit more. I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for joining me today for today's episode of Reset to Reinvent podcast. definitely would like for you to subscribe and download this episode and share it with a friend or two or three. Okay. I want you to continue to join me. Oh, and certainly if there's a way for you to, especially if you're on YouTube, and put some comments, something in the comments, or you can scroll down at the bottom of this, whatever platform that you're on, scroll down on the bottom and see my email address so they can shoot me an email. I want to talk to you. I want to communicate with you. I want to hear from you. Okay. Because this podcast is all about you. It's all about you. Because guess what? You were born to be inspired. Peace. We'll see you next week.
Today's episode of Reset to Reinvent podcast is brought to you by the Adams Group Agency, developing final expense leaders.